What's up, podcast listeners? Joe Tarnowski here with ECRM, and I have with me Nick Bertram, the president of the Giant Company, which operates about 190 stores in the Northeastern United States. They're part of Ahold Delhaize. And Nicholas, thank you for joining us, and also thank you for all of the great stuff that you've been doing during this coronavirus pandemic, both taking care of your customers as well as taking care of your employees. I follow you on social media, and I think it's just been amazing. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Joe. It's been a crazy time for sure, but I've seen many people step up, and we're trying to do our part as well. So appreciate you acknowledging that.
Sure. Well, it's definitely obvious. So I'd like to ask you to walk us through the timeline, of the virus and how from when it was just starting out and then as it's progressed, what were you experiencing in your operations?
Yeah, I think, like most Americans, we started to get some kind of notice of this in the month of January, as saw what was happening, across in Asia, and things continued to progress. And then all of a sudden we had something going on, in the continental US. And during all of that time, there were a number of individuals who were trying to think about what is it that we're going to be facing, what might this look like, what might the spread look like. And certainly we watched what other retailers did in other countries and other continents. And so there's a lot you can learn from watching. One of the beauties of this very connected world that we exist in right now is that you get information pretty quickly. If you're in a free country like we are, you can get that information and understand what's going on and kind of create your plans accordingly. But then it really did accelerate quite quickly as it started to come into the East Coast, and we could see that. And luckily we had assembled a response team at that point, both here in Giant, but also shared efforts across our sister companies in Ahold Delhaize USA, utilizing some of the resources and expertise centers that we have in retail business services as an example. So it was a very kind of all hands on deck moment. To be honest with you, the days are running together right now. If I gave you a date, it probably wouldn't be right because, working from home definitely obliterates your knowledge of what day of the week it is or where you're at or anything else. Mm-hmm. But suffice it to say, it escalated, I think, fairly quickly once different leaders in government started to make decisions to protect the public.
Yep, and once it did ramp up, to what we're seeing today with all the panic buying, how are you keeping up with demand? How are you dealing with supply chain issues, finding new sources of products that might run out? It's got to be tough.
The honest answer is we're not keeping up with demand because demand has spiked and has had a sustained spike. When you have a regional event like a snowstorm or a hurricane or something like that, you can draw from the supply chain into that region of the country because this has become national and international and indeed global so quickly. The ability for our, kind of the upstream of supply chain to flex has just not been there. And as restaurants started to close down, as other businesses started to be ordered to shut down that were deemed non-life sustaining or non-essential, depending on what municipality you're in, that's when we started to reach out to new and innovative partners, both those that we already work with, those that we had not worked with, different avenues of supply chain, such as, food service providers and just whoever we could find. But also there were a number of companies inside of Pennsylvania and in the mid-Atlantic that were reaching out to us to try and find an outlet for their products so that it wouldn't be wasted, but also just to try and keep their workforce going a little bit. So, when this is all finished, whenever that might be, I think one of the interesting things that's taken place is just a stronger connectivity between businesses that otherwise really wouldn't engage too much. But because of this, we've had the chance to meet one another, to work together, to solve problems together, and to try and keep all of our customers and consumers in a better spot than they would have been otherwise. But it's been a crazy effort, honestly.
Gotcha. Are you finding with some of those categories where the products are, going out of stock, are you looking for secondary categories that may be kind of related to it? Like, let's say, one example that I talked to a buyer about in the past was, hand sanitizers or disinfecting products they were out of, but they had another supplier that had aromatherapy with disinfecting properties, and that's been spiking. Like all these secondary kind of subcategories that are a little bit related. Are you seeing that happening?
Yes, and there's innovation happening faster than I've ever seen. So there's a gentleman that I know that has turned his CD manufacturing company in New Jersey into a face shield manufacturing company basically in the course of a week, and he is now keeping his entire organization employed and putting things out there. And I admire that ingenuity and that kind of aggressive go solve a problem entrepreneurial. You see the same thing with a lot of our local beer producers, distilleries, if you like, that are creating that product. Mm-hmm. And then our buyers have been doing everything that they can to be out and about to find alternative and new sources. I just got a note this morning about a paper production company in State College that has got several, pallets of toilet tissue or paper goods that are coming in. We've never worked with them before, but right now we're working with anybody because that's kind of the one category that seems to be impossible to catch up in, not just in our company, but as I look at anybody that tries to sell to consumers right now, I haven't really seen anybody with that yet.
Yeah, that toilet paper thing, I still don't understand. I mean, sure, yeah, I know it's important these times to have a certain amount, but I see people walking around with these giant packages of toilet paper. They're good for a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of places you can go with that, I guess. I'm just not going to go to any of those right now. It's definitely an unplanned, unique customer behavior that I've never seen in my career. And, those that have a bit more years than me in this industry, they can't describe a time where that happened.
And how are your buyers continuing, finding that balance of, they're all pitching in to help the operations, but also they still need to source these products. How are they kind of managing that?
Well, it's even more complicated than that, Joe, because they're also not working at the office. They're working remotely. So thankfully we have a collaboration platform that just happened to be launching this month. That's been very helpful to keep people connected through video conference and sharing desktops and other things. And then our IT department has worked really hard to make sure that laptops are available for those who only had desktop units that weren't really ever working remotely. So not only are they going out and finding new suppliers, not only are they making sure to keep up with our current suppliers, they're also working together in a way that they've never actually worked together. And I could not be any more proud, I don't think, of our merchandising organization, everybody specifically, but the merchants are really, really working hard to go out and find more product in creative ways.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, if there's any way we can help, just let me know. We'd be, more than happy to work with you guys. What about the at the stores and the consumers, the shoppers? How has this changed the way they're interacting with you? I know e-commerce must have ramped up from this.
Yeah, we're fortunate that we have a really strong two channels inside of e-commerce, a pickup channel and also a delivery channel. And we chose to keep those going. We haven't stopped those. Now we have out of stocks there, just like we do inside of retail. But both of those channels inside of e-commerce are maxed out. We have added shifts wherever possible. We have added assets. We have a pretty strong kind of fulfillment network already with 5 e-commerce fulfillment centers. The newest one in Lancaster, PA, as an example, is really, we're seeing what it's capable of now because of the demand that's inside of that. So a lot of customers have definitely chosen that. We have seen a number of first-time users of Giant Direct and Martin's Direct, and we're certainly happy to serve those customers if they had not used our platform before. And we'll continue to do our very best to keep that full and going. And hopefully, as time goes on, we'll be able to add even more shifts. We're doing a lot of cross-training and temporary hiring right now just to make sure that we can bolster that part of our platform.
Gotcha. And do you think that this is really going to result in a shift of some of these consumers to, once this is all over, having had the good online experience with Giant, do you think they'll be more likely to continue that?
Yeah, I don't see how the world ever goes back to being like it was pre-corona. I mean, anytime you see, shared experiences that adjust the way a generation looks at something, it's going to be seen commercially as well. So I do think that this will accelerate the customer's journey to becoming what we call more omni-channel. You know, I think there are certain categories where you want to touch, you want to smell, you want to personally select. There's experiences that you have inside of retail that are unique that you can't replicate online. But certainly those who had maybe a resistance to, to setting up the account or trying to utilize the account, that resistance has definitely dropped down in this. And from what I'm seeing just in our net promoter scores and other, leading indicators of what's going on, it's been a fairly good experience for those who are first time or those who are increasing their repetition and use of that.
And this translates into the store too with the Scan It mobile, I would imagine.
Yeah, very much. No, retail is still the dominant channel inside of our ways to serve, and we're really proud of a lot of the innovation that's been brought over the years. We didn't expect to be using it as a solution to social distancing, but thankfully we had those assets and we've been able to heighten them. So you mentioned Scan It. We also have Scan It Mobile, which doesn't require a handheld unit. It's actually on your mobile device. And we had plans to turn that on this year. Later in the year, we were able to actually accelerate those and activate Scan It Mobile in most of our stores. Actually, it's happening this week. And then to train customers on that, our innovation team created a quick video that we put on social channels to help customers understand what does that look like. I personally use it. I think it's a fantastic way because you can kind of keep a running total of what it is that you've bought, and then you don't have to use scanners to leave those for those who aren't using mobile phones. And it's just pretty easy. And then in a few of our stores, not too many, we actually have Scan It Express, which is where the payment is actually tied into it. And you can just walk through kind of VIP lane, if you like, and you don't have to do anything. So that is 100% contactless. And then there's other elements that have helped out in this too. So deli order ahead, it's integrated into our app. There's also kiosks. So that's helping out quite a bit. We also have a pharmacy app that we launched last year that was already doing really, really well as far as adoption and usage and the ratings and the app stores and everything. And that has really turned into an asset during this as well. So there's a lot of options that I'm thankful that we had. And now we're just kind of putting front and center for the customer to understand the value as they practice social distancing.
Yep. And believe it or not, I actually was one of the first people to write about the Scan It when it was called, I think, the Shopping Buddy 17 years ago, made by QSOL, and it was on the cart. I wrote the first story. And then later on, because I was with Progressive Grocer Magazine in the past, and then I covered it when you launched the Scan It Mobile. So big fan. It's interesting just to see how well the applications work in the social distancing context. And like you said, you never would have realized or planned for that, but how it's just working in that way.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned, you talked about, your now has given you an opportunity to offer jobs to community members, which is amazing because a lot of people, as we just saw yesterday, are out of work. So can you talk a little bit about some of the ways you've been doing that?
Yeah, I mean, we've always been hiring. There's always been a lot of opportunities. I think before this crisis, any other CEO is going to say that probably the hardest thing to do is just to fully staff their organization. It's one of the interesting parts of being in a fully employed economy, pre-corona. And so the war for talent, or the quest for talent, if you want to use that word instead, has always been front and center. And we have a pretty strong employee value proposition, which yields a lot of applicants and pretty strong retention rates as well. So we had the muscle, and we were just able to kind of flex it with our HR partners in the field and our recruiting team. And then utilizing, temporary jobs for those who found themselves immediately without work, particularly in the service industry. There's a lot of, if you think about Philadelphia has probably some of the best restaurants in the country. It's a great place to eat. And, unfortunately, a lot of I guess all of them at this point, unless they are, doing takeout or, curbside, they're finding themselves not able to do this. And so we've reached out and we've done as much as we can to bring in individuals both there and then across the Commonwealth and in the other 3 states that we work at as well, just to try and give people an opportunity. There's this one really cool example where a nonprofit CEO down in the York, Pennsylvania area has actually taken a temporary job and then he's donating his salary actually to the nonprofit. And so that you see all these like incredible, just incredible acts of humanity that are taking place. And it's my personal hope that a lot of these individuals that we are bringing on during this time, I think we've hired maybe 700-800 so far, with more openings out there. I hope they stay on as forever teammates. I hope that this is the company that they grow a career in. Like so many of us, start out maybe entry level and then find yourself running your own store or district or the company, right? I mean, these stories are beautiful inside of retail, where you just kind of get bit by that bug. You find out that it's a lot of fun, and then you choose to retire from there, decades later. I hope that's the story for some of the people that we've hired during this time.
Well, I'm sure it will be. I mean, this is, like you said earlier, something like this really brings people together, and it's almost like, foxhole buddies during a war. That's the group that's working together and helping each other today. That they're going to have a different kind of relationship.
For sure. Yeah, crises bring people together, and I've been amazed. I've received, I should say, just a ton of direct feedback from associates, which is not unusual. I get those a lot, but not at the frequency lately. And just these great stories of, either their appreciation for what's going on or complimenting somebody else that they work with. And then as I've been out in stores, because, during this time, I'm still in retail a lot, just to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect our team, to protect our customers, and just have as good of an operation as possible during this unusual time. And I just see this esprit de corps, this energy, this excitement of just, I guess, the recognition by society that we play a pivotal role in the grocery industry, in the food industry at large, in keeping America moving forward and keeping the world going. And there's a pride that was there for a lot of folks, but I think has really been amplified or created for those who maybe are a bit newer to our industry. It's been a lot of that's been another one of the positives. I always try to find the positive things inside of all these crazy situations. Our team is really, really gelled, and I would say the emotional connectivity has been amplified, and I'm really proud of that.
That's great. That's great to hear. So how are you keeping engaged with your consumers and getting the messaging out? And, obviously you've been very heavy on social media, but has that stepped up during this?
Yeah, it has. One of the interesting things about people being at home is that they're online a lot more. And so the amount of engagement and clicks that we're seeing in all of our social media channels has really gone up to a level where we had to redirect a big chunk of our marketing and communication teams into being part of the social team. So I think it's like 4x the staff in level pre-corona, because we want to be able to answer things real time. We want to be able to, find out what the opportunities are. We also want to be able to share, the highlights of heroes, like the one I just showed you or told you earlier on the gentleman from York who just joined the team. And there's a lot of engagement, and we've always been fairly active on social as a brand. We've been fairly active in digital, period. But this has definitely been a time where, again, that muscle memory has come in handy, but then we've had to bring additional people on just to help out. So we're doing that. We're using media. I've been personally trying to help just in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, really help everyone understand the negativity that comes from panic shopping and what it's actually doing to those who are impoverished, those who depend on the food security network of food banks and everything else. Because when all of the grocery stores, both mine and the ones that we compete with, are depleted at levels like this, there is nothing to donate of significance to the food bank network, which is always dependent on it. And so I've written an op-ed in the Philadelphia Inquirer and some of the other papers in the Commonwealth. And then we just launched a kind of a social media initiative called More for All, where we're really trying to educate the consumer that there is plenty of food out there. Taking us a longer time to get it into the stores than we would want it to, just because, again, the demand is really high and there's this universal or US level kind of pool. And so most of the manufacturers are now on allocation, and there's really no way around that. I mean, you can look on the wire and try to find other products. You can go to alternative venues. You can look at secondary suppliers, tertiary suppliers. But getting it into the system is not rapid, and it's not necessarily easy, and we got to do it the right way as well. I mean, we're never going to cut corners on anything when it comes to integrity. And so getting that message out there that while we're all hustling as an industry to get the shelves full, to get the online baskets full, at the same time, there's just this really big challenge that is front and center, and that's for those who depend on food banks to be fed. And so we need to kind of curtail our desire to panic buy, to stock up. Some people call it hoarding. I don't know that it's hoarding per se, but I do think that the behavior is different. And we just want to educate consumers on what are the ripple down negative effects of that.
Gotcha. That's a good point. Good point. So to wrap things up, what are some recommendations that you would like to share with other retailers that maybe haven't been as hard hit yet, but might be, based on what you've already experienced?
There's certain things about retail that you are not competitive. And I always think about loss prevention as one of those areas. Like we're all trying to, kind of protect our people and protect the merchandise in our stores. This is another great example of that, where I think it's time to kind of be open kimono and share the things that we're learning and just really do that. And that's happening through FMI, through PFMA, through, NRF and the other shared networks in a pretty meaningful way. And then in, where it makes sense in direct communication as well. But we're all in this together. This is not really a time to be, quote, competitive, if you like. We're trying to help, save our country, right, from this crazy tragedy. So we've all got to be all in, and I think sharing information as it comes up, sharing best practices, speaking to governmental leaders in a way where we can make sense of this crisis for them, so they don't feel the need to legislate or litigate or whatever else the solutions for us, because they're not retailers and we are, and so we should be sharing and actively engaging through government relations channels and through different networks that we have as well, trade associations, if you like. So I would say that's really what it comes down to. And then the thing that I would also offer is our duty just to take care of our teams and all of our frontline responders is the term that I've heard used a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's in all retailers. It's not just the giant company. And so I admire those who are doing things like what we have as far as additional pay, appreciation pay during this time, or relaxing policies that we would have otherwise had in place, such as masks or gloves. These are all good things, and I think protecting our frontline teams is a shared responsibility across all competitive sets.
Excellent. And well, that's one of the things that they're saying is nowadays is the apron is the new superhero cape. So they're the new heroes. So, well, thank you again. Thanks for everything that you're doing. Thanks for sharing this information, and stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe and healthy. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.